The attempt to end my husband's life was a horrible, distressing experience. Now, the silence around it feels heavy. I can't help but wonder, why didn't law enforcement officials arrest the shooter before the speech? There is definitely more to this story, and we need to uncover the truth.
When you think back to the presidential debate, it becomes glaringly obvious that there were several topics that were not approached. One of which, of course, was the attempted assassination of Donald Trump. Others, of course, might have been Kamala Harris's communist proposals for price controls, etc. here in America. But don't worry about any of that. The moderators were simply too busy to be in the pocket of the Democrat campaign to actually bring any of these questions to light. Now, as we just saw there, Don Lemon is having the standard Democrat response to a story that has been basically memory hold here in America. As we've seen, no one even talks about the Donald Trump assassination anymore, and if they do, it's with disdain and disgust. So Don Lemon, of course, posted this reaction, and he quickly took it down because there was a huge outcry against it, and possibly he realized in a moment of clarity how stupid it was to have this take about this woman lamenting the fact that her husband was nearly assassinated while running for president. But getting back to the debate, what is the left actually saying? Well, according to Joe Scarborough, it was the moderators who were not forcing Trump to stick to the rules. Let's check this out.
Just showing the absurdity of Donald Trump's spin. It's making up poll numbers. And of course, Joe, it was 3 against 1 up there whining about the debate moderators. The whining is because they said, for one thing, you can't kill a baby in any state of the union after he or she is born. And no, Haitian immigrants are not eating pets in Ohio. That's why it was 3 on 1 and unfair.
And again, I mean, anybody that thinks that's why he lost the debate, that he was corrected 3 times on, well, but, you know, he got about 7 minutes more than he was supposed to because the debate moderators allowed him to keep breaking the rules. Every answer she had, they would try to move on to something else. He would blurt something else, crazy stuff for a minute or 2 minutes, breaking the rules. And I was actually sitting there going, are you going to enforce your rules or not? I mean, I don't know if you remember, but when he came on our show, he didn't talk over us. No. Or we hung up. So
yes, Joe Scarborough, the moderators were simply too busy trying to fact-check Donald Trump with false claims to enforce the debate rules, okay? I wish there were some rules to be enforced. Like, I don't know, the moderators simply guide the discussion as opposed to trying to interject themselves. And it also would have been nice if some very important questions were asked as follow-ups to Kamala Harris. Oh, Kamala Harris, why have your positions changed? They haven't. Good enough for me. Moving on. So Donald Trump, of course, got extra time because Donald Trump had to interject himself because there were going to be no follow-up questions asked. They were hoping that Kamala Harris could end every segment with a statement that would be detrimental to Donald Trump and just simply move on from it. But of course, Donald Trump was going to have to respond to everything that she said, whether it was to his benefit or to his detriment. However, we have, of course, had some polling released since the debate. So we have some Reuters Ipsos news, and here's what the breakdown is happening. Let's check it out over at CNN.
This all gets to young voters.
Yeah.
How much does she need help? How can?
Yeah, I mean, why does Kamala Harris welcome Taylor Swift's support? Why does she need the help? Well, let's just point out something that I have been noting all along during this campaign, and that is the underperformance that both Joe Biden and now even Kamala Harris has among young voters. All right, so this is the Democrat versus Trump margin among voters age 18 to 29 or under the age of 30. You go back 4 years ago at this point. Look, Joe Biden had a 28-point advantage. A 28-point advantage over Donald Trump. Now, you look when Joe Biden dropped out of the race, he was up by just 7 points. Now, Kamala Harris has improved on Joe Biden's standing, but look at this. She's only up by 15 points. That is significantly less than Joe Biden was up at this point among the youngest voters in our electorate. It's only about half the margin that Joe Biden was pulling in. So Kamala Harris will absolutely welcome in the support of Taylor Swift if she can move young voters at all, because the bottom line is Kamala Harris is, in fact, not doing as well among young voters as you might expect a Democrat to necessarily be doing based upon history.
And what we heard from Taylor Swift last night was a call to register to vote, get involved. Why? How much of voter registration and why is that key? How important is that?
Yeah, I mean, look, let's go to the key battleground states of Pennsylvania and North Carolina, all right? And what we're going to do here is look at the Democratic advantage over Republicans in voter registration. This is party registration, registering as a Democrat, a Republican, or unaffiliated. Look, if you go back to September of 2020, look, among active voters in the great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, you saw Democrats with, look at that, a 559,000 voter edge over Republicans. You jump now, look, Democrats still have an edge, but look how much that's dropped. It's now just 169,000. We're talking about the Republicans closing the gap by nearly 400,000 voters in just a 4-year time span. You go to North Carolina, it's the same exact trend, right? You go back to September of 2020, you see Democrats with a 415,000 voter edge, and now they still hold an edge, but it's just 128,000. And of course, both of these states were determined by less than 100,000 voters back in 2020. So the bottom line is Republicans have been doing a significantly better job of registering voters than Democrats have been doing over the last 4 years and getting folks to switch over from Democratic registration to Republican registration.
And you wonder why there's a wide open border, right? Republicans have been making huge gains, huge inroads against the Democrats because the Democrats have gone full communist. They've gone full big government, huge wasteful spending that actually hurts the middle class. Whereas the Republicans are now viewed as the exact opposite. We are the party of the working class. And of course, this also spreads to minority classes as well. Check out this clip from the War Room.
The American working class is not resentful. They don't have class resentment. They don't hate the rich. These are not people who are consumed by envy in the way that the top 20% are consumed by the envy of the 1%. No. What has happened is that Democratic administration after Democratic administration after Democratic administration has stolen the ability of working class Americans, people who work and work and work themselves to the bone, who don't have a college degree, who work with their hands for a living, doing the jobs we would all simply cease to exist without them doing. These Democratic administrations have made it impossible for these hardworking Americans to achieve the most modest version of the American dream. And while doing that, while plundering the middle class in an upward transfer of wealth to their rich friends, they have smeared the working class for objecting as racists or xenophobes or toxic masculinity, right? They have created all sorts of smear campaigns against men and working class people to distract from the fact that they have stolen their ability to feed their families. It's definitely getting through to black men. It's definitely getting through to Hispanic voters. Donald Trump was the first president in 6 years to shrink income inequality and the wealth gap. Okay? Donald Trump created a multiracial, multi-ethnic populist revolution. The problem is that there are a lot of rich white women and they vote on abortion.
There's only one place to turn to for economic equality, right? And that, of course, is to the Republican Party. If you want to work and get ahead, this is the place for you, right? Democrat Party, they are dumb. They want to have handouts for people who don't even try or attempt to assimilate into this country. They want to replace all of the voters in this country with voters that will hopefully work their way and happily be on the government dole, okay? That is the future the Democrats have for you. Now, although the debate did not go the way I wanted it to go, it's not going to be this huge detriment that many people actually believe it to be. Check this out over on News Nation.
The race doesn't look that much different than it did last night. So it's okay. I agree. I think it's funny. You said two things can be true. And while you were doing your open, I was thinking to myself, two things can be true. So my two things that can be true are, I believe Kamala Harris won the debate. It wasn't a knockout, but won the debate last night. And predictions that Donald Trump, I woke up this morning and I saw Kamala Harris destroys Donald Trump. The end, the beginning of the end for Trump. It's like, man, we've been down this road, right? Like, I feel like it's like Charlie Brown, Lucy in the football. Like, he's not going to just go away. I think a lot of people on the left are waiting for this like magic wand to be waved for everyone's like, oh, wait a minute. I actually don't support Donald Trump anymore.
Who's supporting Donald Trump watched last night and said, oh, well, now
I'm so aghast by his behavior from last night. And that's what Kamala Harris wanted, right? She wanted to create a moment where he just melted down and lost it. We have some of those clips. Take a look.
People start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom.
People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go. And the people that do go, she's bussing them in and paying them to be there.
Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people. So let's be clear about that.
She got no votes. He got 14 million votes. What you did, you talk about a threat to democracy. He got 14 million votes, and they threw him out of office.
Donald Trump got on the phone, called up some folks in Congress, and said, kill the bill. And you know why? Because he'd prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem.
What they have done to our country by allowing these millions and millions of people to come into our country, in Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets.
We'll have more on what's actually happening in Springfield, Ohio, because it's interesting. But I've covered Donald Trump meltdowns before. That didn't happen last night.
No, I mean, you and I have talked about this both on air and off air. I mean, my working theory of Trump is that basically he's got like one setting. Almost always, with very few exceptions. The car goes about 60, it's not going to go 30, and it's not going to go 90, right? And I think so he mostly did what he does. Like, this idea that he melted down feels to me like the same people who say, like, things are getting much worse for Donald Trump, he's panicking. I'm like, he's been like this since he came down the gold escalator in 2015. Not that much has changed. And to my mind, if you were for Donald Trump, there's nothing in that debate that's going to take you off that.